Here we go. Welcome to the Business Principles of the Bible. This is actually the third of this series that we're doing. I'm not really sure how many lessons are going to be here. They're going to be short and sweet, and I hope that they bless you. But this is the third one in this series for us. You know, some people ask me, why are you doing this? And mainly the reason is because, you know, I am a woman of faith, and I think sometimes when we talk about money, money's mentioned a lot in the Bible, and we talk about business and money, sometimes as Christians, we hold back. We're not quite as aggressive and we don't push the way we're really supposed to be pushing. I don't know if we think, you know, gosh, if God really loves you, he gives you money, and if he really hates you, he doesn't. It's not that way, guys. So much of it is really within our control, and there are business principles that we need to, you know, to focus on. And so I'm going to call attention to some of those leading forward. I know that there are some of you on the call that don't share my faith. I mean, that's no doubt. I don't judge you for that, but I do want you to understand that this isn't just a Bible study. If you, that's not something that is of interest to you. These are principles from the Bible that, frankly, you see and live a lot of these things every day. You just don't give credit to where credit's due. And you hear it from some of the sayings that we say, like a drop in the bucket or skin of my teeth, or, you know, the kinds of sayings that we say within our world almost daily, you know, that actually come from the Bible. And you're living that, you know, even when you write out a check and you write the year, you know, it's 2016 AD, which is the year of our Lord. So, you know, we are acknowledging him whether you do or not. And again, I'm not judging you for that, and I'm not trying to shove my faith down your throat, but there are some principles here that you really need to see if you're looking for growth, if you're looking for, you know, fulfilled life, and if you're looking for success. So we went over secret number one was that God wants us to be obsessively preoccupied with the needs of others. And again, that's not just a casual, oh, that's really sad, you know, they don't have any money, they can't pay their bills. It's not that. It's being obsessively preoccupied with the needs of others, because you know what, the real background behind that principle is you get your eyes off yourself and get your eyes on everybody else, and you know, it all works out for good. And so you've got to be obsessively preoccupied with the needs. Certainly that falls true with our business. For those of you that are with us in our business, you know, where our mission statement is spreading true health globally with compassion. And compassion is not a casual thing. You know, compassion isn't something you can fake. So when you have that compassion, you're obsessively preoccupied with the needs of others, believe me, your success will follow. It's when you look at it and say, oh, there's nothing in it for me. I don't really want to help those people. Or, oh, I don't want to just get $285. I don't want to, you know, you start counting those checks. You are not going to see success, believe me. And rest assured of everybody on this call, I need money just as bad as you do. I mean, it's not like I won the lottery or I have some sort of, you know, support coming in from someplace. I need to make a living too. But when we take our eyes off of ourselves on the needs of others, that living will come. When we count the checks and we get greedy and all we can see is one 501 sale to the next, you're never going to see true success. And secret number two is we're wired to work. So, you know, that's the way it is. There's nothing biblical that says that we get to a point where we sit back, smoke cigars, and drink pina coladas. It's not there. You know, we're supposed to be productive. We were born for a purpose. The purpose never stops. It doesn't stop at 65 or whenever your retirement age is. It never stops. You were wired to work, and you were wired to want more. And so that was a principle I think that it struck a nerve with a lot of people, because, you know, we think about, oh, when I can sit back and do nothing, and we also kind of address that desire for more. God wants us to want more. And if you doubt that, just think about your relationship with him. He wants you to want him more. Everything is wanting more. That's a big difference between that and greed, okay? But he wants you to want more. And then so today we're going to talk about the third secret, which is we must be willing to change. There's no way around it, guys. Nobody likes change. I, for one, I was just confessing, you know, when I went out to Global, anytime I go out of town, I struggle with it. I'll be honest with you. And mainly, I think I was sharing with Brenda last night, it's the turbulence of my childhood. You know, it's pack up and leave and pack up and leave. And it's very disruptive for me. I don't like change, you know, but I'm forcing myself in many areas of my life. And unless we're willing to change, again, we won't see the success we're hoping for. You just have a wish list, because you know what? It all starts with you. If you want your team to change, you change. If you want your finances changes, you change you. It all starts with us, you know, and of all the things that God has created, humans have the unique ability to change. Nothing else does. You know, nature's. Animals don't have any, you know, ability to change their character, their habits. That's just nature. but people can change. But the real problem is most people won't change. It's not that they can't change, although they'll say they can't change. They'll make excuses, say it's just the way I am, it's just the way I roll. That's just a lie, because we can change. And if you want to chart the course of your life to the extent possible, if you want good relationships in your life, if you want fulfillment in your life, if you want joy in your life, if you want success in your life, you have to be willing to accept the need for change. You do not get born and just grow into an adult and stay status quo. If you do, you know what, you actually end up going in reverse. So there's no surprise that this study is based on, again, biblical principles, but principles that, frankly, devout Jews practice every day from generation to generation to generation. And this is one of the reasons, because they practice these principles, that you see tremendous success and tremendous wealth within the Jewish community. The principles that we're covering are principles they live by. They're threads of the Bible put into action. Have you ever thought about how many Holocaust survivors? I can't even imagine peeking in and looking at the Holocaust, okay? I couldn't stand it. It would break my heart just to look at it, much less to survive it. But have you ever thought about how many Holocaust survivors became immensely successful people? Can you even imagine? Have you ever considered how, although they were persecuted and put to death, by the millions, and not just once, okay, they thrive, and they are one demographic that they don't whine and live in the past. They don't still sit here today and talk about what happened to them in the Holocaust. I mean, they talk about it, but I'm saying they don't make excuses. They don't live back there. It isn't because they're lucky that they've survived. It isn't because they're because they're God's chosen people that they survive. It's because they put the business principles of the Bible to work in their lives every day. And it's because they understand that their past isn't their destiny. They don't let that happen because there's no biblical truth to that happening. But you know what? We do it every day. We make excuses and we live in the past and we blame somebody else, and if not for this and if not for that. But that's not the way we see fulfillment. And so we can take a lot of these lessons from the Jewish people. Sometimes remaining where we are and how we are is not an option if we want that change. I mean, in some areas of our life we're good. We've made the changes, adapted to relationships or whatever, but we have the ability to change. And the question is, will you change or will you continue status quo? Are you content? It's probably time to check out. If you say, wow, I got everything I need, I got everybody I need, I got all the money I need, I'd be real scared about whether it's your last moment in life if you're there, because will you continue in that status quo? Einstein said the definition of insanity, that we repeat this often, but it's continuing to do the same things over and over and again while expecting a different result. There's not going to be anything different if you're not different. There's not going to be any change unless you change. So if you aren't happy with where you are in life, don't blame life, and certainly don't blame God. It's time for you to look at you, because we do have the power to make a change. We are set aside from the animal world. So are you willing to do what you have to do for change? One of the simple things that we could all be doing, and I won't embarrass people and make them raise their hand or comment on it, but one of the things you could be doing is tuning into that Sunday night call on leadership. Leadership isn't just the desire to lead a huge team in a magic, although we should all have that desire. In life, you need to be a leader. You can't be a follower your whole life. And if you're a parent, you need to lead the way. A grandparent, you need to lead the way, in a relationship, in your business, and whatever. So this call, even though you might say inside yourself, I really don't want to be one of those big leaders. Who cares? You still need to be a leader in your life, so you have to make that step to make that change or make that commitment to change. But it would be interesting to see how many people on this call are bothering to take 1 hour of their week on a Sunday night when most people are doing nothing at 9 p.m. Eastern and make a commitment to look inside yourself to be a better you. It'd be fascinating to look at that. But are we willing to do it? And if not, there isn't much that separates us from the animal world. And we're just kind of going through life looking for food, eating it, and going out and looking for it again. Unless we understand that, there's nothing really that separates us out from an animal. And I don't like the way that sounds. But when God, give you some examples, when God needed someone to lead his people through the promised land, the Jewish people. He called upon Moses. He actually put out a cry, for someone, and Moses was the man. But Moses, if you could look at Moses, Moses wasn't dynamic. He wasn't articulate. And, wasn't equipped for the journey in every way, but he was willing and able. And you know what? That's the same that's true for all of us in our business. We didn't come into this fully equipped. I don't care what kind of background you have. Listen, I've got a huge background. I've seen a lot of success in my life, but guess what? I haven't seen true success where I am yet because it's all new to me, and I needed to humble myself and change, And so we aren't brought into this. You can't roll your eyes and say, well, I'm not like Tamia, or I'm not like, Omar, or whatever. You stop with the excuses, because Moses didn't come into it equipped. He was willing and he was able. And he didn't make excuses, or, he didn't come without excuses or flaws. In fact, he said, God, what are you calling on me for? I can't communicate. Moses was a stutterer. If you've ever known anybody in your life that was a stutterer, oh my gosh, that's a struggle for them. It's a struggle for people trying to listen to them. So he was a stutterer, and he struggled with communication. That's not a good thing when you're talking about being a leader, is it? So you could say, well, I can't speak in front of people, or I don't know how to do a demo, or whatever your excuse is. It's just an excuse, because he had every excuse in the world. Say, no, there's no way I'm going to do that. But God took away his excuses, and he equipped Moses with a spokesperson until Moses was able to speak on his own, or until Moses gained the respect and the familiarity for the people around him to understand him. What's the point in that? The point is, if you're willing and you're able, God will equip you. That's the bottom line, because when you're willing and you're able, you've got that why going on. You're dreaming. You've got a vision. You've got a map. You're heading forward, and you will be equipped. But it's when you sit back and make the excuses, and nothing's going to happen. And you'll point fingers, and you'll make excuses for why you aren't where you want to be. And the reason you aren't is because you're not willing to change. God will always provide what you need if you're willing to move forward and to change. It's when you're not that you won't. And then there's another example from the Bible, Elijah. He was a prophet like no other before him. I love to read everything about Elijah. It's just amazing. He was eyewitness to miracle after miracle after miracle, miracles that it's hard to even imagine for us, much less to be eyewitness to. And time and time again, God equipped him, and time again, he was willing to move forward. But he got to a breaking point. And even though God had spoken to him through tough times, good times, he'd seen fire and water, he'd heard from God, even with a gentle whisper, Elijah got worn out. And when he wasn't willing to keep moving forward with that same strength and stamina that he had, God found a replacement for him. In other words, God's going to bring the answer. And so he found a replacement to carry the torch in Elisha. He will always find a way. It's only when we stop or when we refuse to change that he'll look for a different ending to the story. So I don't know if you have a firm commitment to the way you want your story to end, but if I were you, I would. I would keep moving forward with the plan, because you have more control of that destiny than you think you really do. So keep moving. Keep changing. The outcome truly is, in so many ways, in your hands, proven every day by the Jewish people. It's not a matter of we force the hand of God. It's a matter of we help the hand of God. And we do that by being willing to change through humility. So often remaining where we are and who we are is not an option. Again, most of us have not arrived at where we want to be in any area of our life. Most of us, there are ways, places to improve. Some of you might have really good, fulfilling marriages and relationships with your children and your grandchildren. Maybe you're okay there. But I guarantee you some area in your life that needs to be changed. So while it's true that animals don't possess the ability to change, we have no alternative but to change if we want to grow. So remaining where we are, it's not going to produce the results you're looking for in life. And worse yet, remaining where we are will condemn us to move backwards in life. You'll not only quit moving forward, you'll actually be going in reverse. So will you change so that you can grow? Or will you live out a life that's no different than an animal? I mean, I know it sounds very primitive to put it that way, but it's true. Will you live out that life where you just go through the motions like a hamster on a wheel, never willing to do anything different, never willing to step outside your comfort zone, just keep doing what an animal does, a little hamster on a wheel? We don't have that privilege. But, change, it hurts. It's not easy to change. Sometimes, in fact, oftentimes it's very painful. And this accounts for people's reluctance to change. There are 3 reasons for unwillingness to change, and it's true for you just like it's true for me. Number 1 is laziness, because change takes work. You know, you think it's fun to carve out an hour on a Sunday night necessarily at 9 p.m. Eastern? You think it was fun when it was Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern? No, it wasn't fun. But you know what? It takes work. Change takes, you can't be lazy if you're going to be changing. You think it's fun to be on these calls or every call that you can plug into? Was it necessarily fun to schlep across the country and spend a fortune to be at the Global? No, not necessarily. But it's, you know, we can't be lazy if we want change to take place. Number two is pride. So many people believe they don't need to change. You've already arrived. You've been in the industry for 125 years. You don't need to learn anything else. You don't need to produce anything else. You're very comfortable with where you are because you're prideful. Rest assured, when you get to a point where you think you know what you need to know and you can't humble yourself to say, I need to learn to be better at this or I need to change that, you're finished. You're already finished. You just haven't accepted it yet. And number three is fear. You know, people worry about, well, what will I have to address about myself? I don't really want to look at the garbage inside of myself, as Tamia would put it. You know, what will I have to do to change? You know, will I have to confess things? Will I have to, you know, be humble again and admit that I've been on the wrong track? The fear of anything. So it's laziness, pride, and fear. Those three factors are the reasons people are unwilling to change. So we have to look at those and really search your heart. Do you fall within that? Because change is not easy. Change is painful. You give you an idea of industry change. You know, when Henry Ford, the automobiles were first introduced in 1908, they just went crazy, right? By 1913, 250,000 were being produced and put out there on the streets every year. That, I mean, back in 1913, that was astronomical. But you know, most of us don't think about the backside of that. You think, wow, but you know, we're revolutionizing the world and we have automobiles. But nobody really thinks about all the people who were making all their money in the horse and wagon business, you know, from making saddles to, you know, shoeing horses. There were approximately 110,000 people employed just building carriages and harnesses at that time. And 250,000 blacksmiths lived and worked in America at that time. It was huge industry. And then things changed, right? Their business became obsolete in many ways. So those who could not, quote unquote, divorce themselves of the past, those who refused to move forward, those that just dwelled on the past, this is the way I do it, this is what I've always done, this is the only way I know to do it, they were deprived of all the blessings of the future. It were those people that said, wow, things have changed, I need to change. Maybe I don't, you know, shoe horses, maybe I help build cars. The opportunities around them were huge. The ones that ran with it really, really, really raked it in, you know, because the automobile business created millions of jobs, not just hundreds of thousands of, you know, kind of home-based businesses out there shoeing horses and making saddles. It produced millions of jobs. Change was key. But, you know, rest assured, there are some people who still generations later might be seeing poverty because, you know, their family said, well, I don't work on cars, I work on horses. They refused to change. They refused to move forward. They refused to accept that things were different. We hear a little bit of threat in our world. You know, you hear people say, well, I've never used the internet. I don't want to use the internet. I'm not comfortable with the internet. Well, I don't know what to tell you. The internet's here, and it's an integral part of our business. And so, you know, you either change or you get left behind a little bit. And that doesn't, please don't think I'm implying that if you're not on the internet, you can't succeed. I didn't mean it that way. I'm just using that as an example. There are many things that we're uncomfortable with. I'm not a spring chicken. I'm learning things every day. You know, there are many things that aren't comfortable, but we have to learn that things change and we have to change, and change is painful. It's always painful regardless of what it is. You know, changes, a few things in life are more painful than terminating a marriage. I've been there, done that. It's not fun. You know, some people might, you know, think light of it, like we're quitters, we're losers or whatever. But anytime you lose a love or the hope of a future, it's not easy. Whether you lose it through death or you lose it through divorce, it's still a mourning process. It's horrible. You know, for some of you, again, divorce might seem like a coward's way out, but for some in the wrong relationship, one that's dragging people down, one that might be in the way of fulfilling what God has for you, sometimes that's a necessary change. And I don't mean it, I'm not, you know, advocating for divorce. I'm not condoning it. I know what the Word of God says. I'm not excusing myself, okay? But sometimes wrong decisions that are made in life will just get in the way of destiny being fulfilled. And, you know, I saw a lot of judgment when I was breaking up my marriage with 4 kids. You know, I was in a very legalistic environment, if you will, you know, and basically that was like one of the unpardonable sins in their eyes, you know, and so I took a lot of judgment, but I had seriously looked at my family and I said, how will these children be raised, you know, because of this error in my judgment? What will it look like for them? Will my boys become men like this? Will my girls marry men like this? What will it look like? And what I'm getting at is, I know I did something that, you know, God doesn't smile upon, but I also know that he blessed my destiny. My faith, the faith of my children, the remnants will go from generation to generation, would not have happened had I not had to go through that painful change. So sometimes, even though marriage is used as a metaphor for productive human partnership in life, the Bible says it over and over, a comparison, you know, sometimes that breakup or that change in direction from an error in judgment to a new place is actually breakthrough. So change is always painful. Mine was hell. Raising 4 kids solo was not easy. I would love sometimes just put some people in my shoes for maybe a week and you'd see what it was like. It was not fun. It was not victorious. I didn't make that change and move right into another relationship. You know, I did decades, you know, and so I didn't do that. So, you know, change is often, you know, painful. And sometimes it's in every area of our lives. You know, change can bring forth some great things. I just shared with you personally what came from my life, you know, the change that I made. And the changing of industry from small big business to big business, you know, can bring forth great things. The demolition of an old building to replace it with a newer, more modern, more productive, if you will, or better use, if you will, is a good thing. And even the breakup of some relationships, whether it's, you know, I'm not necessarily again saying marriage, but even some friendships or some business partnerships and things like that. Sometimes it's just so oppressive that just breaking that and making changes will bring forth good fruit in life. Change is always, always painful. So, you know, what do we do with that? Are you willing to change? You know, nobody can answer that but you. All I can say with the utmost authority is that if you're not willing to change, you can't grow. You stop growing. And so what you have in your life, the potential you have and what God has for you, you know, can be thwarted if you don't, you know, water it, if you don't prune it, if you don't keep moving forward, if you aren't willing to get your toes stepped on a little bit in life and aren't willing to take the effort that it takes, or to make the effort that it takes to change, you're absolutely stopped in your tracks. You just don't know it yet. So are you willing to change? That's the message for today. If I have anybody out there that would like to comment or question or whatever, I'd love to hear from you. I'll open the mic up again for those visitors. You just raise your hand on the screen there. It's just a way to keep a little bit of order in the sound, the background noise, if you will, by doing it this way. So just raise your hand if you have anything to say or questions to ask, any comments on the message today. I'm glad to take them. Looks like we got a quiet group out there. Anybody at all? I see Mike Cassidy. Hold on one second. Okay, you're unmuted, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, Lynn, those are some great points you brought out about change. And, you know, in this business, we really need to assess where we are and what we're doing. And, you know, if we're not happy with where we are now, we need to make changes.
Right.
You know, if you're taking a certain approach and doing it over and over again and it's not working, you really need to rethink that.
Right.
And maybe take a different tack. So, you know, we have to constantly in this business, and especially with you know, with technology, the way it's changing rapidly, and I'm probably one of the worst in that area as far as changing the technology. But we all need to evolve to be successful in this and to maximize, you know, our potential.
We do, absolutely.
So,
thank you for that, Mike. You're absolutely right. And by the way, I want to give my hats off to you. You and your brother Pat are making great strides with technology. We're very proud of you. You really are. So you had to humble yourself and you had to get uncomfortable and make that change. But you really are changing. We appreciate that. And, it's good to see, when a leader makes a change and says that they confess they're not real good at something. But that's always a good thing because we hear, that everybody's got a little growing to do. So I appreciate you sharing that, I was, anybody else out there right now?
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
yeah, one thing I wanted to comment about the conference out there is if you looked at the people that walked across the stage, the demographics are really changing in our business.
Yes.
And it's going towards a lot younger demographic, as well as a multinational demographic. But it's encouraging to see more and more younger people getting into this, because that's really where it needs to start, is with the young families and so forth. So that was very encouraging. And to follow the theme here of change, in order to connect with those groups of people, we need to change the way we do business.
Absolutely. Good point. Good point. Yeah, because they're going to naturally, the younger people will naturally migrate to the younger people. So those of us that aren't in that younger category, we need to do business the way they do business and try to meet them where they are. And that requires change. And it's not comfortable. Before I see some more hands up, and before I go to them, I did want to say one other thing about, about the change and that sort of thing. And that is that life does change and the business does change. It's evolving every day. But, as I said in the beginning, when I was facing adversity, getting this call going, winners don't quit and quitters don't win. And one of the principles that we've already heard about in this, biblical principles of the Bible is, with the Jewish people see success like that, it's because they stick with it. They don't say, one day I'm going to be a tailor, and one day I'm going to be a lawyer, and one day I'm going to be a doctor, and they don't chase money and go from one pile to the next. They master their game, and they stick with it, and it ain't always fun. And sometimes it's imperfect, and sometimes it's not so lucrative, and sometimes it's over the top lucrative, but they don't go from one business to the next. So if you're on this line and you're inclined to see hard times, challenging times, and throw in the bag and go off do something else, you'll never see success, my friend. You've got to pick something and stick with it. And, I don't know what it would take for anybody to see the value of what we have, not only with our technology, but with our business. If you don't see it, maybe you need to start back there, because if you're inclined to not be loyal to it and stick with it for a long time, then there's a problem within your own heart. We got everything we need right here. And is it a perfect business? There isn't a perfect business. Are they perfect leaders? There isn't any such thing as a perfect leader. Is a perfect set of circumstances? That doesn't exist. It always comes back to you. So you've got to be faithful and loyal and be willing to change, be willing to grow. If you don't focus on this business, and I mean right now, you will regret it forever. It is just about to go massive. Okay, so you don't want to lose that. So I'm going to, now I see Maggie's hand. Maggie came the next hand up after Mike, so she's next in line here. Maggie, you're open mic, my friend.
Why, thank you. Going to your points about making changes in your life, for me, I think the biggest thing is the 2 points you brought up was you got to work at it, and I confess that I'm not always the most enthusiastic person when it comes to pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and that leads me to the second one, which is fear.
Right.
For me, is fear of outside my comfort zone and fear of rejection when presenting the business. So my biggest hurdle is getting over that.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that, Maggie. And it's that what you say is pretty much true for everybody. We've got to be, more committed to making a change, and we've got to acknowledge what's in the way of us making that change. And one thing is fear. It's again, it's laziness, pride, or fear. It's one of those or all of those things. So, I appreciate you confessing that, and I'll be encouraging you and praying for you as I can. But understand you're not alone, so don't be discouraged by that. It's what we're all struggle with. Whether or not we're humble enough to spit that out of our mouths is another story. I see Brenda's hand up. Hold on one second, Brenda. I'm unmuting you. Okay, you're open mic, my friend.
Thank you, Lynn. This is really good. Touched my heart. I loved it, actually. One of your best, in my opinion. You know, this lines right up with what Tamia is talking about as far as lifting your lid.
Right.
And, yeah, so, you know, it's all about the attitude of change. And these examples you gave about Moses and Elijah are really something to look at, and how God used them and what they did, because we all have weaknesses. And no one points the finger at people when you deal with fear or pride or laziness. Those are things that you touch base on here, and you're right, they're the key things. And it's walking in faith and having an attitude and being intentional about changing. So this was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, I'm so glad you did. Thank you for sharing, Brenda. I appreciate your support and your encouragement in these things always. And so, yeah, it's you know, it's funny. We were talking about it global for different reasons. You know, we're actually talking about ministry and stuff. And Brenda, actually, we've been friends for a while. And when we first met, she would just say, "Why is it everybody tells you everything?" You know, like they'll tell you about their lives, and really, I think the reason for that is because I talk about my life. You know, I sometimes get asked, you know, maybe you shouldn't share your failures, or maybe you shouldn't share that pain. But, you know, I believe that we all go through everything for a purpose, and so I share that. But there's nothing, you know, and I've talked to several people on our team, there's nothing quite as encouraging and motivating, if you will, than hearing someone you look up to say, you know what, I messed up. I made a mistake. I didn't do that right, but now I'm on the right track. You know, so that gets everybody being more real with themselves. And so I know you hear me do that. I do it from my heart, but there's also a purpose in it, you know, spiritual purpose, and for our business as well. You know, people, when you look out at anybody you admire, Tamia or Eli or Omar or whoever it is, whoever those people are that you admire, they didn't wake up knowing how to do that stuff. You know, and if you were able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them, they would tell you all the mistakes they made. We've got to be humble and be able to confess that to grow, because when I'm transparent with you and I tell you how often I screw up, I hope that you'll look at that and say, wow, you know, then there's hope for me, you know, because look at this call. I mean, I don't know that I screwed up having trouble getting on this call, you know, but a lot of people would have run for the hills. They would have said, oh my gosh, you know, everybody's going to wonder and they're going to hang up. But, you know, I just kept going on. I hope that that kind of thing, even when things are messed up and they aren't as pretty as we want them to be, that it would encourage you. And so, you know, guys, be real. Be real with yourself, first of all, and be real with everybody else around you, because, you know, that's how we grow. That's how we do it. It's watering the seeds, if you will, when you confess things and help people in their journey, because your journey hasn't been any easier than their journey. You're just making it look like it was. So let's be real. Change is not easy. It's hard. It's painful. I don't like it, but I sure do like the end result. And so I hope you do too. I don't see any other hands up here raised up right now. So I guess I'm going to conclude this call. I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart for your patience in getting this thing going. And I thank you for your input. And I hope that you'll ask yourself, are you willing to change? One thing that you could do, a practical thing you could do, is you could be on that call on Sunday night. You could give 1 hour to yourself to change. Okay, so I hope you'll do that. I hope you have a blessed day. See you guys next time. And if you need me, just give me a call. Take care. Bye-bye.